Okay, so our first speaker, Don Yoakum. His first year in real estate, 51 transactions.
First full year.
Was our first full year.
Which was 1990, by the way. And speaking of interest rates, I was just telling Chad that we celebrated when interest rates went into single digits.
Right.
It was 10% actually when I started in real estate in '89. But anyway.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
And you also built up 10 franchises in Keller Williams on the West Coast. That was pretty
I
impressive.
think I'm the only person that has been successful.
Successful. And also 3 times national champion in windsurfing. He's from Hood River.
Really?
Yes, woo!
I did not know that.
Going on to the Olympic team.
I was.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'll let Don tell you the story, and welcome, Don. Thank you.
I bought a $20 bill. This is bribery. Okay? In this room, it'll be legal for the day. The person that is most interactive, asks the best questions, can answer my questions, is going to win that $20 in about 30 minutes. All right. So one of the things Chad and I were talking about is that, you know, when somebody has their hand in a hot bucket, which I think we could all agree since about 2012-13 to May of this year, the money was literally falling from the trees. I call that a hot bucket, right? When you put it in a warm bucket, how does it feel? Cold. By contrast, it feels cold, right? Because the refis have also gone, for lenders, they went from a hot bucket actually to a cold bucket, which feels freezing, okay? But when you had your hand in a cold bucket and you put it in a warm bucket, what's it feel? It's hot, right? We were looking at actually, Chad had the numbers, and which incidentally, by the way, he and I both worked with Finance of America some years ago, and in that role, I was like a regional manager, and one of the things that I did was I oversaw or supported, both in a business development sense and recruiting sense, 42 branches in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. And so I'm asking the leadership at the company, well, okay, so these guys, who's running a really tight ship, well-run branch? And they said, Chad. So, of course, I reached out to you and came up and spoke to your guys at one point. And this is not something he says. This was something that my leadership at, a multi-billion-dollar company said. So, if you did choose to align with him, you'd be in good hands for sure, him and his team. Oh, you bet. Okay, so it's the interactive part. Can anybody tell me how many million properties will transfer in the coming year, roughly?
Nationwide?
Nationwide, thank you for that clarification. It's 5 million, okay?
Nationwide. Really?
And, approximately. So, give or take, we're going to have about 5 million transfers in the U.S. in the next year, okay? Now, we're not going to have as much volume as we had last year, but there are going to be significant events that cause transfers. What is a significant event in someone's life that would cause a transfer of real estate? A death.
Job change.
Now, by the way, what happens some years generally before death? What could happen in someone's life? What kind of change might they make?
Reverse mortgage?
Yeah, they might get a reverse mortgage. Actually, retirement is a good one. I wasn't going to use that in my example. That is a good one. They would go into senior care or assisted living. Okay, how many of us are best friends with a assisted living manager? Mm-hmm. All right, we got one. What's your name, sir?
Lonnie Bowden.
Lonnie?
Yeah.
Great. So, your assisted living friend, right? Aren't they going to know about people that are going to move from homes that they own into assisted living?
Yes.
And if they're going to do that, what is one of the things they're gonna need to do?
So,
That's right, they're gonna sell their home. Okay, but what I have been told, by the way, is sometimes by the time they get to the assisted living, they have already listed their home. Okay? So who would know about somebody that's going into assisted living before they go into assisted living? This is another professional.
Attorneys, lawyers, estate planner.
Estate planner, in-home care.
hospice? No.
No, that's late in the day. Okay, do you know there's something called a senior advisor? Okay, you want the assisted living person to be a good friend. You want the senior advisor to be your best friend. Okay, or one of your best friends, because they're a little bit further in the chain, and they're referring to the assisted living developments. Okay. All right. So, let's stay with the death, though. How about probate attorneys? I just handled my mom's estate. I probably got, I don't know, 20 letters from people that wanted to buy her property because I was the executor. Okay? Now, do you think that there's a chance that one of those 20 people that were wanting to buy my mom's place might have wanted a discount on the property? That, make all the problems go away, right? And so do you think there might be people like myself that are pretty resourceful, have a real estate license and such, that could probably handle it, right? And so what is another great source of referrals, listing referrals for you?
That can help out the situation.
Well, you're going to help out. You want to be the listing agent. You've got,
Senior advisor.
I was gonna say estate brokers to sell the personal assets.
yeah, estate, well, there are estate brokers and there are estate attorneys. But where I'm going with this, guys, is
A will person?
20 investors sent me letters offering to pay cash for the home. But I didn't want to sell it at 30% discount. Okay? I wanted to list my property instead. Okay, so I'm going to ask you again, who then could be a good referral source for listings for people that don't want to sell their homes at 30%? What's that?
The wholesalers.
There you go. Some of these guys don't have licenses. So they can't actually even accept a referral fee, but they're going to have referrals, right?
When you say wholesalers, people who buy properties at a discount and turn around and rehab them or list them themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Reflip them. I think the term wholesaling too is when, instead of them flipping it, they'll secure the deal and then they'll assign the contract to somebody else, okay? All right, so that's, do you catch that though? For one category, death or aging and then death, how many different professionals could be referring you listings? We just came up with at least 5 or 6. Okay, what if somebody's going to be born? Who knows about that? Doulas, that's right, my wife had a doula.
Financial advisor.
Also, okay,
Doctors, contractors.
doctors, yeah, contractors maybe, but, okay. And midwives. Our midwife, we had a 2-home birth, and delivered 525 babies.
Wow.
Yes. Okay. So do you think she came across just maybe a few people? I don't know what the statistics are. I think it's like 52%. But when 2 people get married, about 52% of the time there's a transaction that results from that engagement in the marriage. Okay. And babies is another deal, right? Okay, so each of these, what we want to be thinking about, because there's not going to be a lot of convenience selling right now. People are not going to be running for the gates to leave a 3% mortgage to get a 6 or 7, okay? But if they have babies, if they get married, if they're passing, okay, what about they just got a, who would know about a C-level executive that's taking on a new job in another city? Relocation, but they want referrals. How about somebody that might refer you C-level executives that can't legally accept a referral? What's that? Thank you. Everybody should have a headhunter as a best friend. Right? These guys are, and gals, are placing people into at least $250,000, $500,000, $1 million positions. We're talking about luxury home trend, and typically they own a home, and they typically don't go homeless after they sell that home, right? So those recruiters are fantastic, right? So what I want you guys to be thinking about is for each of the major events in life, and I've given you a few, there are different professions that are tied to that. Some right when it happens, some after it happens, some before it happens, right? And another piece of this is that once you get into that food chain, you want to find out who is right after that professional in the sequence, and then who's right before in the sequence. And if there's a reputation besides coming from a place of contribution that we want you to have, it is as a connector. At the end of this, I'm going to tell you guys a story that'll blow your mind about a financial advisor. Actually, Connor and I were talking about how financial advisors can be a great referral source for lenders. This guy referred in his career, and actually his career is still going, so now I presume the number is higher, but at the time he was in my mastermind, he had referred a profession 300 times. Okay? And I'm going to make you guys guess who it was. We'll jump into my deck. So, go ahead and click. I'll do the... That's okay. First thing we want to do is, if we're going to align ourselves with other professionals, we want to get somebody that is a service match. And what I really mean is we want to marry up. Okay? We want somebody that is going to be as good or better than us, so that when we introduce them to our clients, they're a positive reflection on us. Okay? So if we're a relationship-based agent, then we probably don't want a transactional loan officer, right? We want to get a relational agent, and we want a loan officer, and we want somebody that is at least as good as us. Okay? And we want to relate. That's the way I think of the real estate world. And by the way, I had launched 10 brokerages, but at one time I actually had 30 brokerages with 5,000 agents in them. And I would observe that there's basically two different types of agents in our business. There are transactional agents. Often those are the biggest in volume, right? And you'll feel like a commodity when you're going through the transaction. You won't even be able to talk to the agent that frequently during the transaction. You'll end up with their assistants and staff and so forth, right? And then there are relational agents. My opinion is that agent doing at least one, but maybe 2 to 4 transactions a month, that's the sweet spot in our industry. So don't be intimidated by these agents that are doing 100+ deals. Their service typically sucks. Okay? So you can smoke them. Okay? When you're aligning with your network, Chad was talking about, matter of fact, the day I spoke, we had another speaker speaking on mindset. What's that guy's name? He's a coach. He lives just off the river. He's a kayaker.
Was it Paul?
Yes. Great guy. Anyway, you guys, we want somebody that has a growth mindset. One of the things, for example, that I have found about CPAs, who can be a great referral source. Little side note, CPAs typically have about 500 clients. They typically own homes. And if people move every 10 years, which they roughly do, a CPA has a client listing their home every single week of the year. Right? 500 clients every 10 years, that's 50 listings a year if nobody owns a second home or rental. Okay? But sadly, most CPAs do not have a growth mindset. And so they don't make very good referral partners. How many of us, when we go to the CPA, we are asked, did you buy or sell a property last year? Don't we all get that question? Or it's on a questionnaire? Okay. So everybody? Okay. By a show of hands, how many people had their CPA last year ask them if they planned to buy or sell a property in the coming tax year? No one. You guys see that? Okay. How is a CPA going to introduce you to a seller if they find out about the event after it occurs? That's really tough to do. By the way, how does the IRS like you if you want to do a 1031 exchange after the closing? Okay, so if the CPA were doing his or her job, shouldn't they be asking that question? Does everybody, in the public know about how to do a 1031 like kind exchange? I don't think so. Okay? Go ahead. The first thing you want to do before you go building your network is you want to make sure you are referable. The number one thing about being referable is showing up on time. Okay? If I have somebody that is late, stuff happens, I get it, okay? But if this becomes a pattern, I will absolutely not refer that person because I don't want them to embarrass me, okay? Next thing is, do they do what they say? Okay, if I was going to give you one rule of how much your referral business is going to be, I would tell you that your referrals will be in proportion roughly to the extent that you exceed your client's expectations. So not just doing what you say. By the way, you know what doing what you say gets you? That gets you the opportunity to serve that customer again. Okay? That does not get you a raving fan, generally speaking. The way you get a raving fan is you do more than what was promised. And the bigger that delta is, the more of a raving fan you're going to have. So when you go in for your listing appointment, are we going to go and give them everything we're going to do? I wouldn't recommend it. If you give them your 21-point plan, and their home sales when you've only done 19, did you do what you said? You really didn't. I know you're thinking, well, wait a second, I sold the property for full price. Guess what? They thought you got overpaid. Because you told them you were going to do 21 things. Okay? Tell them when they ask you, what are you going to do to get my home sold? Give a pause and just look them straight in the eye and say, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Okay. Now, then go ahead and elaborate on some strategy. Right? My favorite, by the way, is to reach out personally to the 37 agents that have sold a home similar to theirs in their neighborhood in the last year, and give them and let them know that home's going on the market tomorrow, so they have 24 hours to get their buyers together. Okay? I don't think there's a more powerful listing strategy after everybody knows the real reason why properties sell, right, is it's priced correctly, it's staged well, and it has good access, right?
Okay. Did you say, did you say the listing, contact the listing agents of people that have sold in that area?
Listing and buyer
Okay,
agent.
okay.
Because, how many, does anybody know, how many agents are there in the Portland metro area? Okay. But in any one area that you would be, an appraiser would be able to use for comps, that's a good rule of thumb. There might only be 37 agents that have sold a property in that area. Those are the 37 that, right, would be most probably have a buyer or seller for that home. Okay, did you finish what you start, right? So are you a person that will persist? Aren't we gonna need some persistence now? Okay? By the way, I told you guys earlier that I got into business in '89. My first full year was 1990. Incidentally, I did learn a 21-point listing program. But what would happen in the listing appointment is I'd be sitting there and I could tell that the seller would just look over at me and they would ask themselves one question. And that, incidentally, 18 to 24 months of inventory. Okay? So you can imagine I was going on a lot of expired appointments. And if it was expired, the previous agent did not sell their home, right? The question was, does Don believe he can sell her home? If they looked over and believed that I believed I could do it, I got the job. Okay? So, there's a lot about communication, but that's another talk. Go ahead. So, how many of us are doing at least one personalized handwritten note per week? Cindy. Love it, Chad. Great. That's awesome. Okay, this is like a lost art, you guys. I want you to think about the last time you got a personalized handwritten note at your home that wasn't a birthday card or Christmas card. How many of us have gotten that in the last 90 days? By the way, do you guys notice it's similar to the people that have written them? Okay? All right, so it's a rare thing, right? And so that's where you guys can go the extra mile. You can get that raving fan status. You can get that relationship built with those folks. Okay? And then, fifth and final point of referability is, are you the best at something? Even if you were a brand new agent, you could be the best at something. Okay? How could a brand new agent be the best at something?
Be punctual every time.
Yeah, just showing up on time. By the way, just showing up on time is going to be 80% of your population. Okay? But one of the things that I do when I'm coaching a new agent, let's say it's one that doesn't even have their license yet. Okay, I'll say, hey, I want you to go to another agent and I want you to have them pull up the last 100 sales in your market. I don't have them pull an area that's bigger than one zip code. Okay? And I don't want you to look at them on the computer. I want you to map them out, get in your car, and drive every single one of those properties. Okay? So, if you're going to set up a local network, there are a lot of people who join BNIs and LTIPs and things like that. I don't, not against that, but most of them don't tend to be very effective because the people that go to joining those usually need deals, okay? And you're looking for people that are, remember, service match better than you. So my personal recommendation is that you first align with a lender that is a little better than you. And we're going to divide and conquer, so go ahead. And we're going to ask the lender to get the majority of the asset-based professionals. So what is an asset-based professional? CPA, financial advisor, attorneys, insurance. Do you think you have more influence with the insurance broker or the lender does?
Money.
By far. Okay? And then, thank you, you're probably going to know more of the vendors that are, I want you to write this down, trigger event for listing a home. So what would be one of the things that you would do if you were going to move?
Have it sprayed.
Stop spraying.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're paying to have it sprayed, aren't you?
All right.
So I asked this guy, we were sitting in a Chipotle actually. I go, well, so do you guys like have clients call in and say, well, you know, you guys have been great, but we're moving and so we're going to cancel our service. He goes, yeah, I get that call 4 to 5 times. He's telling me he's the owner, he's not the receptionist. Okay? He's telling me I answer that call 4 to 5 times a month. Okay, now this guy had a pretty good sized company, mind you. But who's your next best friend, guys? What about the spray guy?
Right.
He's got 400, he's got 40 people living in their home next year. Bless you. Right? Jack's going to be talking about crypto, that's a hot new thing, right? But, I mean, are we having a bit of inflation at the moment? Right? Are we having increasing interest rates? What impact do you think that's going to have on sales, property values? I mean, these are things that sellers want to know. So if you are the realtor and you're on an expert panel with a financial advisor, a lender, an estate attorney perhaps, right? And remember, each of these professionals have their own data set, databases of 200, 300, 400, 500 people that they're now promoting you to as the expert realtor. How much does it cost, by the way, to put on an expert panel event?
Zero.
I mean, doing an event like this, provide lunch, have a room, okay? But Zoom, zero. Actually, that might not be completely true because you might spend a little money in marketing, okay? But you don't have to. We didn't, by the way, to get those 35. Okay. I would, one of the things I told you about when you set up your mastermind, I want to make sure that you align yourself with people that have a growth mindset. And so once a quarter, you should have also an in-person event where you just get together and talk about how you can, how are you winning in your business? How are you feeling challenged? What are your greatest opportunities? What ideas do they have that could help? Go ahead. So I just spoke about the economic panel. Okay. All right, so here's some math to write down. Incidentally, if one of my professionals didn't have a database of 200, do you think I would let them into my group?
No.
Good. Okay, so if you have 12 professionals with 200 in their database, that's 2,400 homeowners. How many transfers a year are we going to have? The answer's on the board. Okay. It's 240. Okay. Even if they're in your network, though, are you going to get all those deals? No, for sure not. Okay. But can you get 10%? Yeah, guys, that's 2 sales a month. Okay, so key asset-based professionals. And by the way, I have a pet peeve. Is there any insurance brokers in the room? PNC?
Not PNC live.
What's that?
I'm live, not
Oh,
PNC.
life. Okay. All right. Well, you're almost as bad, but not that bad. I'm kidding. Okay. And that's true, generally, because they're constantly getting referred. Okay. However, a decent. And by the way, one of the questions you want to ask your insurance broker before you let them in your network is how many homeowners do you serve? They know. The term they use in their industry is households. Okay? If it's not at least 500, okay? Unless you're trying to help your cousin or son get going in the business, okay? And ideally you want at least 500 homeowners. And by the way, I've coached insurance guys that had over 3,000, okay? But if someone has 500 homeowners, how often do they have a client listing a home? How about every week? So you train the insurance agent to do the following. I don't know if you guys know this, but legally they have to communicate with their clients once a year to renew the policy.
Right.
Okay? And like Farmers has a Farmers Friendly Review, which is code for upselling you other policies, right? Guys ever had that one? Say, hey, you know how you do that? You know, Farmers Friendly Review? Just keep doing that. But right before you hang up the phone, I just want you to say this one little thing, which is, by the way, Don, how are you liking your place? Are you settled in there a while? Do you know what 1 out of 10 are going to say?
So good about silent.
We're going to sell this year. Oh yeah, what's prompting that? Well, my son's going to be graduating, blah, blah, blah. Okay? If your insurance agent will not ask that question, fire. Okay, go ahead. Financial planner, now I'm going to speed up, really. We've talked about the attorneys, CPA. All of these professionals, keep going, have their own databases. That's why we want them on our expert panel events. We talked about listing trigger events. Here's a bunch if you didn't write these down. Got to have a property management company, by the way, that doesn't also do brokerage. Condition. All right. There's a saying I have, you'll be judged by the quality of questions that you ask. Okay? The two most important questions in networking are, it's an asset-based professional, do you plan to buy or sell in the coming year? Right? If it's a home improvement professional, what has prompted you to paint your home? Landscape your home, fill in the blank. These are 3 books I encourage you to read. Okay? Endless Referrals, Never Alone, and Mindset. Those are also great books for you to cover with your mastermind group. Okay. So, that is my talk. I
just want to take a picture. We need the books.
Thank you. Okay, so,
Do pastors and reverends give business?
well, by the way, before someone goes to a divorce attorney, who do they go talk to?
Well, therapists or pastors,
Yeah.
one of the two.
I, just to add to that, I have gotten a lot of business out of my church. And I'm a lender, so I've had to refer to agents because they're looking to buy or sell.
Church is a great resource.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Who thinks Lonnie was number 1?
I'm gonna think, yeah, I'm gonna say go for myself, yeah.
Hold on. Who thinks Chad was number 1? He's a sponsor, so he's probably not going to take it. Do I have other nominations? All right, Lonnie.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.